Spectre Vision Radio.
One night, I woke up like wide awake at 3 a.m. and I just immediately knew that something was in my sister's room. And then I heard her voice very faintly. I immediately knew something was wrong, but I was way too afraid to do anything about it. So I just ducked under my covers and prayed for her. So then the next day I get up and I'm like, hey, what happened at 3 a.m? Were you awake? And she was like, oh yeah, I woke up right at 3 and there was this creature standing in the corner of my room. And it was this spindly black demonic looking creature with red eyes. The only thing she knew what to do is to open her Bible and just start reading scripture at it. And it came at her, but then it didn't touch her. And then it crawled out the window.
They claim that our eyes will just be created a slightly different from what they are. We talk these things are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars. How are you doing, Alice?
I'm doing fine.
It's good to hear. Tonight's show, I'm going to be talking with Rachel, who has a number of stories throughout her life. Some interesting stuff, including a shared experience with her younger sister, where she woke up and she knew something was wrong in her sister's room, but she was so scared she couldn't go check. She could even hear her sister was awake. In the morning, she asked her sister what was going on, and her sister said she saw this spindly black demon standing in the corner of her room. At some point later, her sister went to this abandoned Girl Scout camp, and painted on the wall one of the buildings was what she saw in her room.
Oh.
Yeah, it's creepy, right?
Yeah, Girl Scouts.
But Rachel has other stories about a dark spirit that she felt was following her after a breakup, and this tarot reading that kind of turned into this bad experience. Do you remember the pagan festival we went to that we started calling the Summer of Hate?
Yes, I do remember that.
All the just negativity associated with that. It sounds like she had a very similar experience. And there's other experiences and more Rachel gets into. We'll get to that interview in just a moment. Before we do that, I want to remind everybody about the Barred Owl t-shirts. The pre-orders are open now, and we are shutting the pre-orders Friday the 23rd. So make sure you get your orders in. You can get a long sleeve t-shirt or a hoodie with the Barred Owl design on it. Pre-order links are in the show notes. They're also at strangefamiliars.com. You can find them at our Etsy shop as well. I did posts on Instagram and Facebook as well, but they might be a little bit far back at this point. Remember, if you want to make sure you get one in your size, the best way is to pre-order. Especially the hoodies are quite expensive to make, so we really only order a few more than the pre-orders. The pre-orders help us know how many we need to order. Very often, literally every time we make these up, somebody will say, oh, I would have got one if you had one in blank size, and we don't have that because they sell out quickly. So please pre-order if you want one. Thanks to everybody who has pre-ordered so far. As soon as we get the total amount in, I'll set the order to Forest Passage Printing, and we will ship those out as soon as he gets them back to us.
Tim will probably have them all done in 25 minutes.
No, this is a good round of them, so I don't think I'll be able to get them. The last ones I worked all night and got them done in one day, I think. But this one, I don't think it's going to happen that way. It's going to take me a while to get these done. We'll get them out to everybody as soon as possible. All right, let's go ahead and get to my interview with Rachel. I'd like to welcome Rachel to Strange Familiars. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Well, it's good to have you. I'm interested to hear these stories. So if you can sort of give us an overview of when they started, where they took place, and you don't have to be exact down to, you don't have to pinpoint us on Google Maps or anything, but just give people an idea about where it happened.
Sure. Yeah, I have had weird spiritual experiences, paranormal experiences my whole life, basically since I was a toddler. It goes back to even before I was born, a few things too. So there's just been that kind of stuff around my life and my family. I have always lived in New York. I've lived in and outside of Rochester, New York.
Okay.
So East Coast. Mm-hmm.
All right. So do you want to go chronologically and start from when you were young?
Yeah, I will try my best to remember the order of everything.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. And I always say this stuff, it's not so easy to tell these stories sometimes, because they're not nice straight lines all the time. Sometimes they are, but often there's like, well, this relates to this other thing.
Oh, exactly. It bounces around.
Yeah.
My earliest one, well, I guess going back to me being a baby, it wasn't anything crazy, but my mom did tell me that she had one of her most profound spiritual experiences when she was pregnant with me. So there's just kind of been that marker since forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in a Christian household. I'm no longer a Christian, but religion does come into some of my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my earliest experiences with something weird was I wasn't more than 7 years old. I think I was like 4. I think I was like 4 years old. And I lost my favorite Beanie Baby and I couldn't find it anywhere. And our house was shaped in like a circle. So you could really go in any room. And then there was the upstairs too, but the first floor was very circular.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wandered that circle looking for my favorite Beanie Baby. And I was just like, I cannot find this thing. And then I just remember praying really hard and just being like, if this isn't somewhere where I'm ever going to find it, will you please just make it appear so that I can find it? And then I'm doing another loop and I just like see it sitting right in front of the bathroom door, clear as day, where I had 100% already passed by before. And I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. That is not look, all these stories are unusual, but that sort of theme comes up a lot where you're just like, yeah, I definitely look for that. I've looked for it 50 times and there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's all different theories about what that is, but yeah, that one was so obvious. Like I would have seen this. It was in such an obvious spot. And so I think it really did just appear there.
Yeah. I think sometimes this happens for sure.
Yeah. So that's one of my earlier ones. And there were a lot of spiritual things that happened. I always had a very rich understanding of the fact that it's not just the physical. And so there was a lot of just me talking to the spiritual and feeling things, whatever. But fast forward to more weird experiences versus the spiritual.
Let me ask one more question before you get there.
Yeah.
This understanding, did it come from was that the way you were brought up, or is this more of an intuitive thing?
It was both, I would say, because I was brought up within Christianity, but I will also say that I just naturally had an intuition for it. There was a large variety of types of Christians that I grew up around, and some of them were more on the religious side, some were more on the intuitive side, and I would definitely say I was more on the intuitive side of just being very clear that there was a channel I was in communication with. And it had much less to do with the ritual of Christianity and much more to do with I'm talking to these spiritual influences.
And at that time, would you have framed it as within the Christian context, I guess?
I would. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I was quite deep into it. And like I said, I'm not a Christian anymore, but I still take with me, I do believe I had very real spiritual experiences. Mm-hmm. So I'm not throwing it all out, but I don't live within that framework anymore. So I guess the next bigger story I have, it would be a shared experience between me and my younger sister. So she also has always been quite spiritual, and we've had a lot of similarities. We're very different and we're also very similar people, and we tend to sync up on knowing things at the same time. Mm-hmm. And this was probably, I don't remember exactly. I was either end of high school for me or beginning of college for me, but I was still living with my parents. And I think it was either end of high school for her or beginning of college. So it was somewhere in that time frame. And we had our separate rooms in my parents' house. And one night I woke up wide awake at 3 a.m. And not like I have to pee or anything like that. It was just like I was just wide awake. And I just immediately knew that something was in my sister's room. I was just like, oh no. And then I heard her voice very faintly. And for clarity, I am a very deep sleeper. So her voice wouldn't have woken me up. I'd slept through serious windstorms. I've slept through crazy thunder. Like, I'm a deep sleeper. So I wasn't woken up by her voice, but it was like I immediately knew something was wrong. But I was way too afraid to do anything about it. So I just like ducked under my covers and prayed for her until I fell back asleep. And so then the next day I get up and I'm like, hey, what happened at 3 a.m? Like, were you awake? And she was like, oh yeah. She's like, I woke up right at 3 and there was this creature standing in the corner of my room. And it was this like spindly black demonic looking creature with red eyes. And again, we lived in Christianity. So the only thing she knew what to do is to like open her Bible and just start like reading scripture at it. And it like came at her, but then it didn't touch her. And then it crawled out the window.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was just wild that it woke us both up.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see it,
Right.
but she's always been the one that sees things. I know things. And so, and it woke both of us up.
That's very interesting. Did she give any more details about the way it looked?
No, but I did check back with her about like 3 years ago to be like, I didn't make this up, right? This happened. And she was like, yeah, this 100% happened.
Wow.
She's like, it's why I didn't watch horror movies for the longest time. She's like, I couldn't handle it.
Interesting. Wow.
And what's wild about this is she ended up with a few friends later on going to this abandoned Girl Scout camp. And she had a few creepy experiences there as well. But one of them was she got into one of the cabins and she found this creature drawn on the walls.
Oh. Wow.
She was like, that was exactly what was in my room.
Wow. Huh. Yeah, that's very creepy.
Yeah, just weird. It was such a strange shared experience. Like, why did it wake me up? I don't know. But I knew it was there, but things don't show themselves to me. I just know of them.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Octavian has said something to me. Now, I've always thought I've been very sensitive to sound.
Yeah.
We were somewhere one night, and he's like, you're the one who picks stuff up visually. And I'm like, really? Especially because my night vision's not good at all. He's like, well, no, I've noticed that. He's like, you can... And he even had a dream about it. He said, it's a very interesting dream where he said in this dream, I was telling him, like, apparently we were looking for Bigfoot, and I was telling him, you're not allowed to look. I'll draw it for you, but you can't look. And he said when he looked, the Bigfoot creature punched him in his dream. So I had never thought of myself in that way. I thought, like, no, I'm very sensitive to sound. I guess from his observation, I do see things. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, you shared that story about seeing that like fairy lady and you and your friends seeing very different versions and stuff like that. And yeah, I really don't think I have any experience of seeing things, but I do know things and I do get like dreams from the other and stuff like that. But I guess I see things in my mind's eye.
Yeah, I mean, intuitively, this makes sense, right? Some people are more likely to, have better hearing. I mean, you just distill it down to that. Some people are more inclined to this or that, whether it's art or music or writing or whatever it is. So yeah, and as much as any of this makes sense, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's always interesting when there are shared experiences.
Yeah.
And you're just, okay, well, that definitely happened because we both confirmed it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, those are some of my favorites for sure.
Yeah. So the next, I guess in chronological order, the next thing would be right after college. I had some entities following me around for a month or two. And I kind of just handled it in silence for a while. I was at a pretty dark place in my life. And I did have a little bit of a morbid curiosity. regarding like the demonic and stuff. And it's not like I was doing anything other than just being curious, but I can't help but think that maybe I made myself a little too available, and that's why this happened. And my curiosity, I've done a lot of fine tuning since with my spirituality of not pushing into places that don't feel quite right. I'm just like, I'm going to stay in my channel.
That's so important. That's so important. When people hear me say, you know, in regards to this stuff, to like trust your gut, it's really important to know that center, you know? And just this like, nah, I don't belong there. I need to be over here.
And other people do belong there.
Right.
But like, I need to pay attention to where I belong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I was a little bit too curious about things that weren't really any of my business. I was going through a really horrendous breakup of like my first ever relationship. And so there's just a bunch of things. It was just a very transitory time, a lot happening. And this dark spirit started to follow me around and like impact me physically. And my biggest memories with it is I started to really struggle to sleep. And I was just like, there's things in my room. I can't fall asleep. I don't know what to do. And then I went to work one day. And at the time I worked at like in kind of a warehouse factory setting. And I was standing at this one machine doing my job. And I had this sensation that sounds so dramatic, but it's literally how it felt, is that at any minute, this thing was going to make me go crazy. It was so weird. And it wasn't that I was necessarily mentally unstable as a person, but it just felt like it had this grip on me that at any minute I wasn't going to be able to use my brain like I normally could. And then I just felt like it was like holding on to my back and like pulling me down. And I felt like I was going to collapse at any minute.
Now, is this a physical sensation or just like mentally, you know?
It was physical.
Oh, an actual physical.
Yeah,
wow.
It was physical sensation. And one of my other sisters has talked about, she was like, well, maybe you were just having a panic attack. And I've had panic attacks since. And I'm like, I really don't think that's what it was. Mm-hmm. So that happened and I was really struggling. And then I talked to my sister again that I had the shared experience with, because she was always the one that like understood me in these things. And I was like, hey, I haven't told anyone this, but I feel like really unsafe in my room and I'm really struggling. And she was like, okay, I'm going to sleep on your floor so that you can sleep, which was like, first of all, very sweet of her. But she was like, yeah, you get some sleep. I will sleep on your bedroom floor with you, so you're not alone. So I finally slept because I wasn't alone, and she did not sleep that night. Huh. And the next morning she was like, no, there's like multiple in your room. Like, I'm not sleeping. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's not great. And then finally I told my dad, and he went and prayed over the room and it went away, which ticked me off because I was like, I also tried to do that. Why didn't it work? But yeah, but it was just a weird thing to carry around.
Yes. I mean, sometimes it takes more than one try. Sometimes it takes someone else, you know, whatever it is. But so how did you decide it was an entity and I'm not just down in the dumps or something like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've always had a very rich internal world. I grew up like talking very directly to the spirit that at the time I knew as Jesus. And I really did know the difference between my own internal dialogue, which I'm very clear on, and something separate interrupting that dialogue. They're two different sensations for me. And so it just felt different. And I've also always been a very emotionally tuned in person. So I also knew what it was like to deal with really intense stuff. Actually, since I was a kid, I dealt with pretty intense internal turmoil. And this just felt different. Is there a chance that I just was super intrigued by this stuff, so I freaked myself out and then it became, sure, maybe. But also there was very real physical sensation with it. So I'm like, I don't know, there's just a different feeling for me.
Yeah.
And I can distinguish it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I trust your interpretation of it. I always say I try to give people what I call the grace and the space and the grace to interpret their own experiences in their own way, because like, I'm not in your body. I don't know what's happening, but I'm just curious, like sort of thinking back. I always try to put myself in the same position, sort of thinking back to my life. Would I have picked up on an entity, or would I have thought, it was something else going on. And I don't know the answer to that, really.
Yeah, I think I've had so many other experiences where it was something else going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there's something following me. Like, it was so visceral. And I am somebody that has also like lived with types of chronic pain and stuff. So I'm like, I know what physical things feel like. Yeah, I don't know. It was just different. It was different.
Yeah.
I was like, something's on me.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Yeah, and again, I'm cautious to say we open ourselves up when we look into the dark side and all that.
Same.
I don't think that's necessarily the case. But could it? Yes, certainly, and it might have happened whether you were looking into that stuff or not. I guess that's the point I'm
Right.
trying to make. Who knows? But it's super interesting that with prayer, it goes away. Like, that is worth noting. It's interesting. And again, if you don't want to put it in a Christian context, it maybe just as well somebody just asked it to go, it would have gone. I don't know.
Right. And something that I know you talk about on your show a lot is that idea that it doesn't seem to matter what type of religion it is. These things do respond to, and that makes sense to me. So I'm like, for whatever reason, being within the Christian framework did impact different things in my world.
Right. And I think certainly, having grown up Christian, there would be some meaning to that for you.
Totally.
And there might be some power there that would help in that, because there always is a both end thing with this. There is, it's partially psychological, but there is an other element. There's something else. Like you said, I know it wasn't me. I absolutely trust you in that.
Yeah.
And so there does seem to be this sort of dual thing, though. I know it wasn't me, but because I grew up in that, and that means something to me, that might have more power than something else, some other spiritual form of
Totally.
dealing with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that even though I'm not Christian, I haven't erased all of my experiences. I'm like, no, I had very real experiences that some people leave religion and they're like, oh, that was just totally just me. And I believe them. I'm like, yeah, sometimes you are just like caught up in the moment. I had very like outside of me experiences that I can't just say, like, I'm still a very spiritual person.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's important too. I've come through several things, and hopefully I've taken the good things from those and carried them with me.
Yeah.
I was, heavily into, and chaos magic in the 80s is not what it is now on the internet, but
Yeah.
I was heavily into that, and that's not really something I'm into anymore. But there were things from that, good things that I've carried with me from that point, and will probably for all my life, So yeah, I think all these different elements, and it's important to realize that, I think. So like, no, that was part of me.
Yeah.
It's not anymore, but it's part of me, and I'm going to always take those things, that apply, or like I said, the good things, and
Yeah, exactly.
come with me. Yeah.
It super shaped me and who I am. So it wouldn't make sense for me to throw it out and pretend like none of it was real in some shape or form.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, okay, I'll go on to tell my bigger story because it's got a lot of moving pieces to it.
Okay.
So I'm going to be like kind of bouncing around on details, and I'm going, hi, my best.
That's what I was getting to at the beginning when I said this stuff's like a spider web. It's, it's not a straight line. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to be using fake names for this story, and I'm not going to say where it happened because I know the other people involved want privacy.
Okay.
But I did a while back get their permission to tell the story in a way that didn't divulge them. So a few years ago had a friend do a tarot reading for me, and it's all going to tie back in. And I specifically had some questions about ancestors and ancestors' involvement in my current life and wanting to know bits and pieces about that. And so we did a tarot spread asking some questions, and it was the Queen of Cups came up, signifying, yes, there is this ancestor in your life. And basically what it looks like is that there is this ancestor who was a witch or some type of a spiritual being in your past that is fulfilling what they didn't get to fulfill in their life through your life. And I was like, cool, that feels good and right. And went on with my merry way. And there are some other things about that I could get into later if we have time, but that ends up coming back up in the story. So that happened. Fast forward several months. That friend and another friend of mine and myself were going to go to this folklore camp. And again, not saying where it was. The only detail I will share about it is that we did drive there because that's also important. But we were going to go to this folklore camp together just for one night. We're like, oh, we've all been wanting to check out this place. Like, well, let's go together. And I just like could not shake that I was not supposed to go. Woke up every morning with this feeling of I was trying to convince myself that it was okay. Just like not feeling well about it at all. And I get really annoyed when I get that feeling and it's something I want to do, but I'm like, man, everything is telling me I'm not supposed to go. But I kind of pushed through and I told a few people about it, all people who would normally take it very seriously that I was feeling that way. And they were all like, no, it's probably fine. You're probably just like, I don't know, anxious about this or that. So it's kind of weird that those people also weren't like clocking how serious it was to me. And then like somewhere in that or just before that, I had this dream. And one of the friends I was going with, who is also the person who did that tarot reading for me, we were hanging out and I was like, oh, I had this just like weird dream and it was so ridiculous. I got to tell you about it. And they were like, you had a dream? Rachel, we know when you have dreams, they mean things. And they were like, what was the dream? And I was like, okay, well, I had this dream that I was at my old place of employment and they were doing something that harmed the environment and specifically harmed foxes. And I went in protest onto their deck and I just broke eggs. And then that was the full dream. And I told my son, I'm like, what did I think eggs would do? And they were like, Rachel, eggs are used in protection rituals. And I was like, huh. So there was something intuitive happening for me in my sleep there. Move along. We get on the road to go to this folklore camp.
So you're overriding your...
I'm overriding.
Yeah.
I'm saying we're going to make this happen no matter what, even though everything in me is screaming to not go. And we're in the car. And okay, my friend who did the tarot reading and stuff, I'm going to call them Kyle and I'll call the other person Ryan. For this does come into importance, but we are all people who were assigned female at birth, not all identifying as women, but it is important to note that there was that element to it. So I'm in the car and on the way, I'm like, here's what I think is going to happen, everybody. I think that we are going to get there and people are going to be very cold towards us because we're coming on the last day of this like festival week and I think people are going to be weird and standoffish. I just have a bad feeling about this. And they were both like, no, it's a folklore camp. It's love and light. It's going to be fine. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is what's going to happen. We get there and like from the get-go, things are weird. We get in and they cannot find proof that we registered to be there. And immediately I'm like, yep, we're not supposed to be here. And finally, after a lot of back and forth, they find it and we're good to go. Then we go out to the main campground area and we're hanging out and we're doing stuff. And just like in general, people aren't being very friendly towards us. And it turns out that this is like a camp that some people live at like year round. Some people don't, but this was like a specific event that people come from out of town to be at. And one of the people we did know there was like giving us the rundown and was like, just so you know, if you go in like this area, be sure to do this and this or else people will be mad at you. And there was just all these like particular things that nobody told us at registration. So I was like, this place sets people up for failure and feeling like outcasts. This is kind of weird. But we're kind of like, whatever. And then we are done with our time in the main camp and we go to our cottage, our like little camp. Yeah, it was just like a little building, a little cottage that was, or cabin, I guess is a better word, off of the main campgrounds. And I asked my friend Kyle, who was the one that did the tarot reading and like asked me about my dream. And they were like, I'm feeling weird. And we're like, I was like, okay, do you want to talk about it? And they're like, no, I got to process this first. I'm like, okay. So we get everything together and then we all sit down and they were like, okay, I'm ready to talk about it. I feel like we're being treated really weird here. And very standoffish and getting weird looks. And I feel like something's super off about this place. And then at this point, I had been like, no, I'm in the zone. So I'd like kind of forgotten about the feelings I had going into this. And I was like, no, you're probably just overthinking it. Like, I didn't notice that. But then the more we started talking about it, the more I was like, no, I guess I have been noticing that. And Kyle is a person of color and they were one of the only people of color there. And so we were like, yeah, I mean, and so me and Ryan were like, if you want to leave, say the word. Your safety is super important here. They were like, I don't know.
Strange Familiars is brought to you by our patrons. Thanks so much, patrons. Thanks for all you do. We could not make the show without your help. If you'd like to help us make the show and get extra content besides, you can become a patron at Patreon. Patreon.com/strangefamiliars is where you find that. All of our patrons get commercial-free versions of the weekly shows, plus extra episodes. We do at least one full extra episode exclusively for our patrons every month. Sometimes we do more. Our Patreon patrons also get to participate in an ongoing paranormal experiment. We're right in the middle of that, but it's not too late. You can jump in at any time. And as part of that, we've been doing live streams. So it's like bonus episodes our Patreon patrons get every month as well. Again, go to patreon.com/strangefamiliars for more information. There's also an option at Apple Podcasts. The program there is called Patron of the Strange. Our Apple Podcast subscribers also get the commercial-free shows weekly and the bonus shows monthly. Very soon we'll be activating memberships on YouTube. Now you can subscribe for free, and even if you listen to the show other places, if you could subscribe on YouTube, that does help us out. But when we activate memberships, our YouTube subscribers will be getting the extra shows monthly, and we'll probably throw some bonus content up there as well for our YouTube members. And thanks to all of our patrons, no matter where they're signed up, it is a huge help.
So then we're all sitting there and we just start getting more and more anxious. And then we're like, are we just feeding each other's anxiety at this point? Are we just really in our heads about this? So we decided to do a couple tests. And the first one was my friend Kyle cast lots. Also, I don't know if you can hear, but if my cats get loud, you might hear some chirps. I shut my door and they're not happy about it. And so Kyle cast lots, and with the way lots work is there's like this line, and everything, all of the trinkets that end up on one side of it mean the subconscious, and everything that ends up on the other side is the conscious. So like almost every single token ended up on the line of the subconscious. And there were a couple that landed on the side of the conscious, and one of them meant fakeness. And we had been feeling like there was this like performative spirituality in this place that was like very much trying to push us out. So we were like, that doesn't look so good. And then Kyle's like, it's fine, whatever. Let's just forget about it. And then gets all the stuff up, and we're just sitting there and we're feeling bad. We're feeling bad. So then Kyle's, let me do a tarot reading. So they do a tarot reading, and it was like, and I've done tarot for myself, for other people have done it for me. And there are times that you get readings and you say, no, that's not how that feels. This is actually what feels right for me. And there are other times where it's read and you're like, yep, that's spot on. So I'm not somebody that's just like, you tell me anything and I'm going to believe you. I'm going to push back on what does and doesn't feel right. And they put out the spread, and it was like every single card meant something really awful. It was just like warning, unsafe, warning. And we're just like, okay. And Kyle once again is like, okay, whatever. It's like, let's forget about it. It's fine. So we're sitting there, and it's like we're getting more and more heightened in how anxious we are. And then we're sitting around talking, and suddenly Kyle was like, oh my God, Rachel, didn't in the previous tarot spread that I did for you, didn't the Queen of Cups signify one of your ancestors in your life? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, that came up in this reading. And we're like, oh, okay. I guess like our spirits are really trying to get through to us that like not only are these warnings, but cards that have signified something important to me are coming up. It just kind of felt like all of our spirit guides were coming in at once to be like, get out of here.
Right.
So all of that happens and we're like, okay, we're going to run some tests again. I don't remember actually what order these things happened in, but they all happened in the same like 30 minutes of time. But we were in this cabin that was really away from everyone else. So if it just had to do with the main campground, like one of the things we suggested is we're like, we'll just not go to the main campground. We'll stay in our cabin, just hang out the three of us, and that will be fine. And normally that would be fine. If my anxiety was coming from people being weird towards us, that would have been fine. It'd be like, okay, we'll just stay away from those people. But there was something else to the anxiety of like, no, we're not safe here. Oh, and with the tarot spread, one of the things, the reason I brought up that we were all assigned female at birth is that one of the cards meant harm to women. One of the cards was just very blatant. And although we don't all identify as women, we all still felt that as like still meaning us. Mm-hmm. So it felt like we were in danger. And so we were at our cabin and we're like, okay, we'll just spend time away from everybody. It will be fine. But then the people that were staying in the cabins around us started acting weird towards us. And one guy was nice to us and everybody else was weird. And there weren't a lot of people around, but there was this like trailer near us that we didn't know anyone was in. And then this person comes out. Oh, there's just so many weird details that sometimes I have to remember what order, you know. My friends were like, we need water. Let's go see how the people up front treat us when we get water and just like go from there. At this point, I had gotten kind of shaky and cried. And my other friend was having a little bit of a panic attack. Like things were happening. And so they go out and someone comes out of the trailer. We didn't know anyone was in this trailer. Comes out and basically trails them up to the main office area. And then they come back and they're like, we were just treated really weird. Right after they come back, this couple walks around the trailer in the direction of our cabin and we all go, hi. And they turn around and leave. Like they immediately walk away and we're like, are people spying on us? What is happening? And they were like, yeah, when we went up to ask for water, the people at the front desk acted like we were idiots. And we're just like, it's over there. And we're just mean. And they're like, there's something weird happening here. And so finally, we were like waiting just a tiny bit longer. It started to thunder. And I was like, okay, thunder is one of the things that calms me down the most. So I'm like, if this is just my anxiety going crazy, this should calm me down and I should be fine. And nope, I just got more and more anxious. And finally, we're like, do we need any more signs or can we just leave? So we all left. We were at that camp for less than 3 hours, I think, before it like chewed us up and spit us out. And we were traumatized for weeks after. And the thing that my dream comes in is afterwards, we all got together and we did an egg cleanse ritual to protect ourselves. And the detail about the fox hit me on the drive back from this folklore camp, because in my friend's car that drove us there is a fox stuffed animal on the center console at all times.
Oh, wow.
And so I had preemptively dreamt about the fact that we would need protection from this place.
Wow. So did you get a read of why people were being that way?
The way it felt was that, and this, again, it sounds so dramatic, but I felt this down to my core. It felt like we had stumbled upon a cult that wanted to sacrifice us. And I know that's not what this camp is. Other people, I know people that year went really well for other people.
Mm-hmm.
But what I kind of chalk it up to, because I really do believe something like physically violent was going to happen to us that night if we had stayed. I don't know why. It doesn't seem like anything happened to anyone else at that camp.
Yeah, again,
I don't know.
You're getting feelings that intense, follow your gut.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt you to leave, but who knows if you would have stayed,
Yeah, it felt like we had literally no other option. And what I have thought it might be, I mean, I definitely think there was a lot of fakeness happening. So I think that there was that we were feeling from people. I think that there was a lot of kind of ingrained, like, you're outsiders attitudes towards us. But also, I wonder if there was somebody on the premises practicing something sketchy, and it was directly impacting the three of us who have very open channels to weird spiritual stuff. Like, all three of us had witchy tendencies. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I immediately recall it was a pagan festival that Stone Breath played one time, and we collectively began calling it the Summer of Hate because of just, it shouldn't have been that contentious and nasty, and it was, and it wasn't like the first one we done. We played them regularly. Like, that was our regular summer gigs. We would play at these pagan festivals, but this one was just, ugh. And we left early. I remember we played, and the next day we're out of here. We're done.
Yeah.
And we never did that. We always hung out and everything. But yeah, it was a very similar kind of feeling though. It was just, it's like, nobody wants us here. Let's go. We're out.
Yeah, it was very bizarre. And like, I guess there are some other details around it. I still don't think it was these things. But these things that did play into it, there were a couple of people there that I knew would be there that did have some pretty serious problems with me. But I think it added to the energy. I don't think that's what spit us out. And there was some existing anxiety for me in the trio that went. So there were things like that played into it, but I felt the whole I'm just anxious around these people versus the anxiety that we felt very potent and very something else.
Yeah, you're putting me right back into that one festival. Like
it's
everything
so weird.
You're describing is like, same kind of thing, which is people, and these were people that we were previously friendly with, and were just like real hard and nasty. I banned someone from Stone Breath shows for all time. That's the first time I've ever done that. Just they were being so nasty. I was like, do not show up tonight or any other Stone Breath show, or I will stop, and I will tell the whole audience that you're the reason I stopped, and I will continue when you go.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. And then the last night we were there, after we had played, the only food stand that was open sold falafel. I was like, oh, I like falafel. I'll get some falafel. And I get this pita with falafel, and I, like, my first bite into it, there's a penny in the falafel. I almost broke a tooth. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. This is horrible.
Yeah.
Like, whatever's going on here is horrible.
It's so weird. And whether it is just like the collective conscience having an impact, or it's something else, or it's both, I don't know, but it's potent. And when you have to just like get out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We could not wait to get out of there. I remember we were all just like, we're out.
Yeah.
We're done.
I mean, the three of us that left, we were like truly traumatized. Like for a week or so after, we were reliving it and we're like, we cannot, it sounds like nothing happened, but it feels like so much happened to us in that time.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell, I won't, one day I'll tell Stone Breath tour stories on the show, but it's not appropriate to do it right now. But when I tell it, people are like, oh yeah, that does sound kind of yucky, but it's just like, no, you don't get it. Like, you don't get how intensely, the whole feeling was just like, we could not wait. It's like your skin's crawling until you leave. It's like, yes, I have to get out of here.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, but it was bad. I mean, there was no way we were staying. There was just no way. And all three of us were feeling it. And that's just like, okay, time to go.
Yeah, that was the same. The whole band was like, nope, we're out. We're not doing it.
Yeah. So that one was probably my most traumatizing one, just because I haven't felt that level of unsafe at a place in that way before. I'm just like, I gotta go.
And
I'm
for
going
a
to be
folklore
harmed in
fe-
some
you would think, like you said, like going in, it's a folklore festival. What's
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be fine.
Yeah.
But I have found with those things, it's very hit or miss. And I do think that a lot of people in pagan communities can be very fake and a little bit hostile in their fakeness of like, I don't know, I've met some of the best people ever who are deeply spiritual, lean towards more on the pagan side. But sometimes in these big festival settings, sometimes I just don't feel like I really belong in them, to be honest. I think that there's just this like, sometimes an air of performative that just makes me nervous. I'm not saying that's always the case, but I think it can happen when big groups of people get together and they kind of feed off each other.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not worth mentioning again. We found out later that there were other, unrelated to us and unrelated to the people that we were having issues with, other yucky things happening there.
And that's what I think what was happening. I think that there was something insidious happening that we were picking up on that maybe other people weren't. And it was just like, okay, well, we have to go because we're feeling this.
Yeah. Yeah. It very well could be the case.
Yeah. Very weird. So that's my more like in-depth story. And again, didn't see anything,
Right.
but experienced weird things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And it's one of these things where other people will have had similar experiences and they'll get it. Just,
Yes.
they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's it. And those who haven't will be like, okay.
Right, exactly.
You had a bad time, but
Exactly.
for those coming from someone who's had a very similar experience, like, no, there's more to it than it was just a bad time. Like,
Yes.
I can't explain it anymore, but if you know, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're like, it's indescribable, but it's weird. And
For sure.
yeah. So one of the other ones is a little bit more recent. Another entity experience. Well, a couple entity experiences. Again, I don't see things, but I know things are there. And one of my best friends has haunted rooms in their house. And the rest of the house is mostly very chill, but there are very specific rooms that very much have activity in them. And I've experienced bits of the activity. And part of her house's history that a neighbor told her is that it used to be a drug house. And when she moved in, the attic was like divided into these very makeshift walls. You can assume what happened in those walls. It very much felt like a place where people went to shoot up and possibly prostitution, things like that were happening potentially in the attic. But she was like, the feeling in the attic was bad, like really yucky. And so she had two of her friends that are just like very pure men just come in who weren't as sensitive. And I will preface this with saying she's very much a skeptic. So if she's also feeling stuff, you're just like, okay. But they tore the walls down. And when the walls came down, she was like, it definitely cleared out a lot of energy. Like it really felt like in that situation, nothing in particular was haunting the walls, but the walls had held bad energy from what happened. Those got taken out. But there's a chair. And the chair is bad. And you could not pay me money to touch this chair. Her and another friend agreed we don't touch that thing. And the other friend did see something move on its own in the attic. So it's like, there's something haunting this spot. But I had never been up in the attic. And so I was like, hey, I want to see it. I've never been up there. And they were like, okay, yeah, let's go. So they walk me upstairs and I walk around. I definitely clock the chair. It's just like a wooden chair. And then we both kind of at the same time were like, okay, time to go back downstairs. And we got back downstairs and she was like, yeah, I can't tell what is with the chair, if it's just the same energy as the walls or if it's like an entity situation. And I was just like, without hesitation, it's an entity. There's something that sits in that chair. It's very adamant that it's their chair. And just like we both knew when to leave the room. And I was just like, I could feel it watching me. I could feel it it just kind of felt like it was there, like arms crossed, glaring through us. And I was like, no, there's no question. There's something in there. And you could not pay me to touch that chair. You just couldn't. And I tend to know things going on. I'm not always super keen on when it's an entity. And this time I was like, oh no, there's something in your living in your attic, like for sure. So that just lives up there. It doesn't really come down. Sometimes its energy seeps down, and one of her cats kind of goes a little bit nuts and kind of alerts people of the fact that the energy is seeping down. But in general, it stays in the attic. And then there's one in the basement too, except the basement one doesn't feel malicious. And one of my partners lived with my best friend for a while, and he and her talked about it at the same, they had never talked about this prior. This is after he moved out of the house. They had a conversation in front of me about this entity in the basement, and he described it exactly the way she was describing it, like at the same time. They're both like, it's like this. He stood by a wall and he just kind of like peeked around the wall, and he's like, that's all it does. It just kind of watches you when you're in the basement. And they both agreed that it's a male entity, and it just kind of hangs out in the basement, and it's very curious about what you're doing. And there are times that my friend has felt it like start to follow her up the stairs, and she'll just be like, no, you're not allowed to come with me. And then it stays down there. So she's just like strange, haunting experiences.
Yeah. I mean, again, these are the ways that I've found, and it's proven, through people I've talked to sort of address these things respectfully.
Yeah.
But firmly, and say, no, you're not to come with me. Or, I've like I said, I've had people say, there's something in my house that's bugging my kid. It's like, well, tell it to stop,
Yeah.
Firmly, respectfully, don't challenge it to a fight or anything.
Right.
Just firmly say, no, you're scaring us. We'd rather you not be here. Please move along. And the success rate is incredible with that. Like, honestly, like, people write me back and they're amazed. Like, it worked. I'm like, yeah. And it might come back someday, and just do it, repeat, ask it again.
Right. And that's the thing. And the one in the basement, she said it's like kind of been on a break and hasn't been there, but it sometimes comes back. Mm-hmm. And it's also very interesting. The difference between the one in the basement is just very mild, and the one in the attic is like mad.
It's interesting. That's very interesting. And you wonder if there was whatever kind of activity going on up there. You wonder if that, would have feed into that sort of negativity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know. I have so many different ideas about what entities are, about ghosts versus cryptids versus whatever. Is it the spirit of someone that actually existed there? I don't know. Is it a creature that kind of came from from hate and distress? I don't know. Right. But there's something there that's very potent.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, what do I know? But my thought is, it seems like there's very few actually like souls of dead people running around that people are calling ghosts. And I think a lot of what people are calling ghosts are these other spirits that are willing to take on. They'll either, I'll pretend to be whatever you want me to be, or they're drawn to this energy for good or bad. And, it's fine to use ghost as a shorthand term to say, this ghost is like that. But I think, very few of what we in general, the whole population calls ghosts are actually like the souls of dead people. And I base that on many things, some of which is like some of these things that people are seeing historically, like in Gettysburg, for instance, they've proved never existed. And yet people are seeing them. It's like, well, okay, what's happening here? Well, something is obviously like, oh yeah, I can get all that attention by pretending to be the subject of this story. So yeah, I'm happy to be that.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to believe that as well, because I think that the inconsistency of the idea of it being an actual spirit, when I'm like, I do believe that, I don't know, I think, I do. I'm more inclined to believe that it's spirits. And if it is a person, I'm more inclined to believe that it's like a glitch in the timeline or like, in and out of dimension.
Yeah, kind of residual thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it never happens. I do think it can happen, but I just don't think it's like as much as people think it is. I think there's such an ecosystem of spirits out there, and they're willing to do whatever, For
Well,
whatever
yeah.
reason, some of them definitely want attention. They definitely
Yeah.
want to be involved with us for whatever reasons. So I think it's like, sure, I'll be a ghost. Fine.
Well, especially given the tropes of like people always see this woman in a white dress or
Mhm.
they see the man with the top hat or like these things where it's like someone that looked like that didn't exist in every single one of these places.
Right.
So it makes more sense that it would be these entities being like, oh, I guess y'all respond to this.
Right.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Did anybody try to do any sort of cleansing in the attic, or is it just kind of like you don't want to even mess with it?
Not in the attic yet, but other rooms in the house were cleansed.
Do they use the attic, or is it just,
It's not really used at the moment. Some things are stored there. My friend does want to eventually do something with the chair, but it's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and I don't know what, like, literally don't know what to say. Do you want to stir some? If you're getting such negative stuff, do you want to stir that up?
Right.
Or do you want to just, if it's fine, just be in there? Do you want to just leave it alone? I don't,
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to, I would just be so worried that if I touched it, I would bring something with me, like, I don't know how it all works, but I
Right.
do think that like, you gotta be a little careful.
Yeah. And again, follow your gut. If your gut is saying like, yeah, I don't want to mess with that, don't mess with it,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, another weird situation of like, yeah, I can tell something's there. I personally don't believe I'm someone that's ever going to see anything. Like, there are times that I want to, like, I think it'd be really cool to see a cryptid, like, from really far away.
Mhm.
Nothing close up. But in general, I just do not think it's a gift I'm given. I think I'm given other things. And
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately better off for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've been visited in dreams a bunch of times. I've had dreams of things that were going to happen before they happened. Think I have a past life memory from dreams. There's a few, I get a lot in dreams. And I think that,
and you mentioned before your friend was said, well, if you dreamed about it, let's talk about this. So
Yes.
we often talk about the concept of big dreams, little dreams. It sounds like you are having at least some big dreams, but
yes.
do you have what I call little dreams as well? Just these inconsequential ones?
Yes.
And
I dream very vividly
Mhm.
most nights, but I have maybe like 5 dreams that I can go back to that I was like, oh, that was spirit talking to me.
Mhm.
And there's like a very clear distinction. Then I have a bunch of the in-between stuff that is like, did I astral project? Have I been doing that my whole life? And because I revisit some places in my dreams.
Mhm. Me
But
too.
I'm like, or is that just my imagination? Because I've always been imaginative,
Right. Yeah. Do you know at the time through feeling or through other indications like, oh, this is a big dream? This is,
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, like every time.
Is it just a feeling or is there something indicative about it?
Usually, if I remember my dream with like insane clarity, there's that. I'm like, why is this one sticking with me? And there is usually a feeling while I'm dreaming it and after I wake up where I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to pay attention to this one.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, and not always, but most of the time, if I dream in place, in other words, if whatever's happening is happening in the room I went to sleep in or the room I am sleeping in as I'm dreaming, to me, that's always a trigger like, oh, this is something. And
Yes.
I do remember them.
Yes. I have had dreams like that too. And honestly, more and more there was a weird trigger after my first breakup ever because it was very traumatic. I started dreaming almost only realistically of like places looked exactly like they were supposed to look. I could see details on people's faces, like something like snapped in to focus.
Yeah, like none of that
And-
weird like dream logic stuff.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I still get some of the weird dream logic, but I used to have a lot of like, I know this is supposed to be my house, but it doesn't look like it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, even like 4 or 5 years ago, yeah, one of my dreams for sure happened in place.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other ones did happen somewhere I was familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And I dreamt it a couple days before it happened. So like I dreamt the exact thing that was going to happen. But in general, it's like usually has to do with people I know. They look like themselves in the dream, or it's some weird spiritual thing that I'm like pushing again. I do a lot of like encounters with dark entities in my dreams. And one of those was like, I was in my bedroom, the exact way it looked. I could see the full layout of the house. And I was like pushing it against this entity.
Now, can you see entities in your dreams?
Yes, I do see entities in my dreams.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's where you get to see them.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they're distinct and sometimes they're more of like an abstract imagery, but it still is like kind of an image, you know?
Have you ever seen a UFO?
No, not that I know of.
Not one to usually make predictions, but you will.
Yes.
There's my prediction. On the morning of April 18th, 1961, Joe Simonton saw a silver disc on his farm. He went out, investigated, and stepped aboard the craft. There he encountered 3 dark-skinned humanoids who handed him an empty jug. Joe filled it with water and brought it back to them. In return, they gave him some pancakes. If this were to happen to you, Rachel, would you eat the pancakes?
I know I've heard you ask this question to everybody. I don't think I would.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would try and be as polite as I could. But I guess it really does depend on how I felt in my gut.
Yeah.
If I felt at peace because I feel these things in my chest and I feel anxiety more in my throat and in my stomach. And if I'm feeling good in my chest, then maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if I'm like, I can tell. But if there's any level of doubt, I'm going to be like, no, thank you. And for a lot of reasons. I mean, sometimes if I'm just nervous, I'm not hungry too, or I feel nauseous. So I'm like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I think I would be more worried about eating it than I would be about offending them.
Interesting. Yeah, there's no wrong answer. Mine changes continually. Rachel, thank you so much for sharing your stories. If anything else weird happens, you know where to find me.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Instead of a curiosity this week, I did a little reprint. So I found this story in our travels, and it was called Edric and Sylvain. And I picked it up. It was removed from, I think, Harper's in 1908 was the original publication. I picked it up because I like the illustrations, because Howard Pyle is one of my favorite illustrators. Love Howard Pyle. I like to imagine that I could have gone to Brandywine School where I lived back then, but then I would have been kicked out because I don't understand color.
Yeah.
But I would have been accepted.
You would have been accepted,
and then kicked out.
Kicked out.
I wouldn't have made it through.
Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, you would have become best buddies with all the great illustrators of the time.
In any case, Howard Pyle, fabulous.
You guys would just sit around on a Friday night drawing pirates and stuff.
Yeah, we just hang out drawing pirates and knights and whatnot. So I bought it for that, and then I read the story, and there's this really neat story about this guy named Edric the Singer, also known as Edric the Wild, who sort of takes place in medieval times, and he travels through the wild places in Brittany where the trolls and fairies and werewolves are and stuff, and he ends up taking this sort of fairy wife and naming her Sylvain, and then the story tells of how they kind of move to society, and there's this like tragic death, and then she actually has sort of a rebirth. It's a really neat story, and it has these elements of Strange Familiar-esque moments, you know, dealing with the Fae and things like that. So while I originally purchased it for that, I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, this is a really cool story. Like, it's really neat. So I decided to reprint it. It's a 6x9 booklet with full color. Every page is color, and every page has an illustration by Howard Pyle on it. He did sort of framing for the story, and then there's some full-page illustrations as well. Printed up as a nice booklet. So 16 interior pages plus a cover. That's $8. You can find it at our Etsy shop. You can find it at the Stone Breath Bandcamp. Now, the other thing I did is, for some reason, I went insane and decided to make an audiobook version as well. And then I decided to make an ambient accompaniment for it. And then I decided to take that ambient accompaniment, separate it from the vocals, and then do sort of a remixed long-form ambient track as well. So the audiobook version of Edric and Sylvain is available at the Stone Breath Bandcamp. And that comes with this long-form sort of dark ambient track. So if you want the audiobook version, I did that. If you just want the print version, that's at Bandcamp or at Etsy. I think it's a really cool story. I think everybody will like it. And the illustrations are astoundingly good because it's Howard Pyle, and he's one of the best of all time. It's called Edric and Sylvain. I'll put links in the show notes.
Is that the boat? The best of all time?
He's one of the boats.
Yeah, he's
He's definitely one of the boats.
Uh-huh.
we'll put that up instead of a Curiosity of the Week.
Is that plus shipping or is that
It's $8 and shipping's extra
Yeah, okay.
for that.
Still pretty good deal for a little book.
I hope so.
They look nice.
So if you get it on Etsy, you can find our other wares at Etsy, including Strange Familiars t-shirts, patches, stickers, and more, including the pre-order for the new Bard Owl shirt. Make sure to get that done by Friday the 23rd, if you would, and I'll order the shirts on Monday. My books are there. If you get them from us on Etsy, they will come signed. I'll sign them before we pack them up. Artwork, prints, and originals, including the artwork for tonight's show. Some of my music is there, some Stone Breath and some of my other music. Allison has various bits of ephemera and photos and stuff there. Go ahead and check it out. Our shop name is Lost Grave, but if you type Strange Familiars in the search bar at Etsy, it should come up that way. There should be links in most episodes in the show notes. There's links at strangefamiliars.com, etc., etc. And as I always say, thanks to those who purchase from our Etsy shop. That's another way to support the show, and it is a great help as well. I think that's it for this week. We'll be back soon with more Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. If you want to hear more or purchase music, you can go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com. Strange Familiars is on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars. You can join the Strange Familiars gathering group there. We're on Instagram at Strange Familiars, one word, no underscore. Please give us a follow there. For Strange Familiars merch, go to strangefamiliars.com/merch. And go to strangefamiliars.com for everything else, links to everything we do, etc.
Below the morning peeps over